All right. So we'll start from the beginning. Usually I would start like this. Well, folks, I'm Dave.
And I'm Sean.
And we have some special guests here tonight, all the way from the West Coast. Bring them on, Sean.
So your PR gal is amazing because I don't know how she found us, but we got your release of your new single. We're going to go into that, but we have David and we have Richard, and we're really excited to have these guys. We're going to let you guys talk about yourselves. We don't want to crowd all the airspace. Breaking into sequence, new single, Twine. David, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us about it?
Twine is, it's a really good song. We'll start with that. It's actually kind of what the second batch of songs I think we started writing. So we have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 that we call them in the batches of songs we wrote. And Twine, I believe, is phase 2, which kind of represents the second stage of progression in our songwriting together as a band. And it's a really good song, but we think we got better as we got to phase 3. But eventually, you guys will get phase 3. It's a great song.
Agreed. And I've listened to it a bunch of times. I can't even peg it. When you're going, you're looking for stuff on it. They call it new metal. I don't really like that term. Richard, what would you guys term it? To me, it's very unique. It's kind of, I guess, 90s-ish, but it's got a really unique now sound to it.
Well, I think it's new metal-ish. Music-wise, it's very reminiscent of that new metal sound. And I think a lot of that is because of David and his drumming and his choice of beats over it. But I think that my vocals take a slightly modern approach, so that's where you get kind of like the modern sound over it. But I also, I'm influenced by a bunch of old school guys. So I try to take the old school approach to the writing of the melodies and the sections and everything. But I guess it sounds different because, it's today.
Well, I mean, that term new metal is kind of, well, it's not that unique because David, one of the original members of Korn, who really, fair to say, pioneered that genre. Is that fair to say?
So I've heard.
Fair enough. So when you guys were recording this, were you able to do it all together? Did you have to do, the whole COVID thing where it was done individually and kind of, file shared and how that, David, how did that come about? And I will say, bud, I'm a drummer too. And I really loved what you were doing on the tracks. There's some really neat things in there. So how did you put pieces together?
Well, the first part of your question, like the recording, this was all recorded pre-COVID.
Okay.
So yeah, we've been sitting on these songs for quite a while. And the way I put stuff together is as we work on parts, sometimes we come up with, guitar and bass first, and then I will add drums, or maybe sometimes I'll start with some kind of drum beat, and then we'll start kind of a jam within the band. And anything can happen when we write. I don't remember specifically how we wrote Twine, but it's what I hear in my head. That's just the way I play is what I hear to go with certain parts. It's just what I hear.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of planning out of saying, okay, this song I want to do this kind of drums, or this song I want to do a different kind of drum, whatever. I just, when I hear it, I have a few different ideas in my head, and I just go for it and see how it sounds. Sometimes not so good, sometimes it's good.
So
yeah,
are y'all sharing
all the time.
credits? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we are all sharing writing credits. We all equally write in the band. But what I was going to say was, most of the time when David starts drumming over some riffs, it's a beat that we never thought would go over it. So he immediately adds his own flavor right away. And it could be as simple as him just playing a simple 4 on the floor beat, and it's still different than what we thought it was going to be.
That's cool. That probably ties to what Sean said, because Sean, and it's true, I listened to the track too. It's like, and it sounds reminiscent, but it's still fresh and new, right? So of course it's going to be that flavor of something that we think we've heard before, but it's brand new. So that's probably, and is it a 4-piece?
It's a 5-piece.
5-piece, sorry. So putting all those people together, you're going to obviously have your own influences. And you touched on that earlier, Richard. Well, who are some of your influences? You say old school. Who you grow up with? Who'd you listen to?
Well, my actual vocal influences, one of them is Scott Weiland.
Okay.
Rest in peace. Chester Bennington's another one. Lane Stanley. All these singers who have passed. But Phil Anselmo is one of my influences. Maynard, Mike Patton. So I mean, those are a lot of the old school guys, and then Jonathan Davis too, obviously, part of the new school, and Chino Moreno, all those guys. I kind of like take what I like from each singer and try to meld it into my own style.
Okay.
So you mentioned Chester, and I mean, sometimes when you're sitting and talking with some people, and you hope that you don't throw out the wrong thing. So if I do, I apologize ahead of time. But I felt a little bit of a Linkin Park-ish flair to it. Obviously you guys sat down and wrote it. You're not going to sit there and try to nick it right off. But is that fair to say it's in that sort of realm, David?
I think it is in the realm of Linkin Park, although we've never sat down and mentioned any band saying we want to do something like this band has done, or copy anyone. That's never something we talk about. I mean, we have done parts, and then we would stop and someone would say, that's exactly like this other band has already done, and we've nixed them. So, well, we can't do that, obviously, by mistake. We just didn't know. But I don't think we've ever sat down and said, let's copy this band on this particular song or anything like that. It's never came up.
No, that's fair.
Right. But
Yeah.
in terms of like structure and like big choruses and catchy choruses, I think it's kind of in the same vein as how Linkin Park does that, at least how they did that on their first 2 or 3 records.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, let's be honest, there's only so many notes and so many chord patterns you can go through, so many double bass kicks, whatever there can be. But it's to keep that realm alive with it. Well, that's what I want to ask, because I mean, do you find that how has the record been selling, and is there a new audience for it, or are you kind of attracting the old 90s crowd?
I think the old 90s crowd is actually gravitating to the record. But I think I looked at our Spotify analytics or whatever the other day on it. And what did I tell you, David? It was like the age group that's listening to the single the most is like 28 to 44. Wow. So that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned Spotify, and I mean, we talk to a lot of people, and it's one of those things where a lot of the newer bands, I guess, the up-and-coming bands that don't have a lot of experience or exposure are all over it. Some of the more seasoned people that have been in the business for a while, not so much. We're going Richard, David. I'll go back to you for a second, Richard, and maybe David, you can weigh in. But what on those platforms, what are your feelings on those?
Well, I'm not a big fan of them, but today it's a necessity because that's where everything has gone. I mean, people aren't really buying CDs anymore. I mean, hell, cars don't even come with CD players anymore. Laptops and computers don't come with disk drives anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. So really, it's the only way to get your music out there, right? The pro to all of this is that you have digital streaming platforms or providers that can actually put your music out to everyone, to the world, so that you can actually circumvent the label. So that's the pro to it, is anyone who records music can get their music up on Spotify. It just depends if someone listens to it. But I believe streaming, the pay for streaming is terrible. I mean, it's something like 0.008 or 7 cents per stream or something like that.
Yeah. Something ridiculous.
Yes.
So David, your thoughts? I mean, obviously, you've been at it a while. A lot of new bands feel, I work with a record label, and it just seems like, every new band, the first thing they say, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Tunes. What's your thoughts on it?
I'm not a fan of streaming. Even though Richard's right, you can circumvent a record label. That is a good part of it. But I'm not a fan of streaming because when CDs were coming out, I remember being excited to get the entire CD, get the booklet, get the artwork, so hopefully get the lyrics and listen to the whole CD from front to back.
That's right.
I mean, I can still pull this stuff on, digital platforms to listen to a whole record front and back, but I don't think most people do anymore. I think they just go for singles or maybe individual songs that are being posted or pushed on social media or streaming platforms. And I miss the days of picking up an entire CD, listening to the whole CD, owning it, and the artwork.
That's right. That's right.
I miss that too, man. I totally miss that, because sometimes you would veg out on the CD and you would sit there and you would go through every part of that booklet, inside the CD, and you'd be like, oh, who produced this? What is he saying there? And look at all the cool pictures and collages that they would put in there. That doesn't happen anymore.
No. Well, I mean, you used to buy the Kiss record and get the Kiss Love Gun in the sleeve, and now you get to download the Kiss Love Gun and print it. You don't even have the same thing anymore, and it's kind of unfortunate. And I mean, the other thing too that I'm finding that a lot of the kids are missing out on, they know the hits, but some of my favorite albums, I actually like the side that didn't have any hits. It was the stuff that kids aren't picking up on that these days.
No.
Yeah, the deep cuts. Those deep cuts.
Let's do this, guys. We're going to have our first break, and we'll come back for our last segment here, and we'll touch on a little bit of the stuff, because I think we're all in around the same age group. So we talk about CDs, but I mean, to Sean's point too, is buying that vinyl album and seeing the artwork in large size. That was the cat's ass for sure. But I want to find out what you guys are going to do next, where you're playing, where people can buy your stuff. So let's do that. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and talk a bit more about the future. Is that fair?
Sure.
Yep.
All right. So we're out.
Barstools Bandtalk, the complete metal music bucket list.